All right, courtesy of The New Yorker, we have some amazing leaked audio to bring you. So this is the behind-the-scenes effort among Republicans and Koch-backed operatives to try to fight back against H.R. 1, that's that democracy reform bill that is high on Democrats' priority list. It would do a lot of things. It would reveal who's behind. We sort of get rid of dark money. It would increase transparency. It would include redistricting. There's a whole raft of measures in there. They're particularly upset about the measures that would require more transparency around political donations. So let's listen to a little bit of that audio and just how dismayed they are at how popular the bill actually is.
Don't get into a fight in H.R. 1 where you engage with the other side, where they have the talking points. H.R. 1 stops billionaires from buying elections. Unfortunately, we found that is a winning message for both, the general public and also conservatives. That simple message, but far and away was resonated with people. And when they had to compare that message versus tons of other ones, they were most persuaded by that. And they found that to be most convincing and most, riled them up the most.
So that's Kyle McKenzie. He's the research director for Stand Together, which is a Koch-backed group, Koch-funded group. And there are some amazing details here. So first of all, they find that this stops billionaires from buying elections, that messaging worked equally well with the general public and with Republicans. Across the board, hilarious. Extraordinarily popular, which they're very, very disappointed about. And then he goes through, here's the different messages that we tested, and basically none of them worked. They tested an AOC-related message saying that it might help her achieve her goal of holding people in the Trump administration accountable by identifying big donors. That helped a little bit, but it was really fuzzy, and the link to AOC was extremely tangentious. Then this was the one that I loved, and this is a direct quote from Jane Mayer, who wrote this piece. Sadly, he added, not even attaching the phrase cancel culture to the bill by portraying it as silencing conservative voices had worked. It really ranked at the bottom, McKenzie said to the group. That was definitely a little concerning for us. So they're just throwing every conservative culture buzzword at the wall in attachment to this thing, and they're still finding that it's wildly popular, and they're not able to move people off of the super compelling messaging that it keeps billionaires from buying elections.
It's funny to me because it's a very good microcosm into the GOP just has no idea what to do right now. They are throwing everything they possibly can. It's just not working. The border stuff, maybe. That might be their best bet. But even then, it just hasn't reached the level of actual outrage amongst the base in order to engender that. I think there's a lot of reasons. The second one is that they weren't able to do that on the stimulus package. They're almost certainly not going to be able to do it on infrastructure. In terms of campaigning against tax rates, let me break it to you. Tax cuts or tax hikes for the rich are not just popular, they're extraordinarily popular. So every single one of you voting against that isn't necessarily going to work well. And the lowest GOP approval rating of Trump's presidency was the day he signed the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. They just don't know what to do. They got no juice with the debate. Trump was the only guy who really could fire people up because he felt like an authentic screw you to cultural liberalism. And none of them really abide by that. They don't have that level of cachet. And at the same time, on a policy level, they just simply have no idea what to do. This is largely what I predicted would happen, which is that Biden is just he's not that cultural touchstone. On everything, everything I see him do, the Asian shootings, he's just come out and he's we'll wait and see for the investigation. He's not going out and commenting on whatever the controversy of the day is with Dr. Seuss in a way that Obama just would because he couldn't help himself.
It's a basement strategy, and it's actually pretty effective.
Yeah, he's like Bill Clinton in a lot of ways, and that's actually really popular.
It's just hilarious to me that they were maybe we say cancel culture. Yeah. Maybe that'll work. It's just no, you just mouthing the words cancel culture over and over and over again is not compelling whatsoever. In fact, it's hilarious that they say it ranked near the bottom of the attacks, but none of the, and it's also very telling, as you're saying, they try to attack it using AOC. They didn't even try with Biden. It wouldn't land whatsoever. He just isn't, they haven't successfully demonized him. They haven't been able to really lay a glove on him. But what's also revealing here is the conclusion they come to is that it is a losing battle to try to engage on this at all. publicly to try to win like the public messaging war on this. It's wildly popular. It's popular with their base. It's popular with Democrats. It's popular with the general public. That there's not really anything that they can do about it. So they're just going to shut up about it and try to work behind the scenes to kill it. That's the goal. Is like, okay, the public loves this thing and there's nothing we can do about it. So we're just going to do everything we can behind the scenes to try to kill it. You know, you could actually embrace something that's wildly popular. You could actually try to win over a majority of voters rather than trying to restrict the number of voters. And I know something that you and I have both been talking about is like, you know, GOP has this calculus baked in that the fewer people vote, the better it is for them. And that historically was true because Democratic voters tended to be those who had less likelihood of showing up at the polls every single year. Well, these coalitions are shifting now, and they're changing. I'm not sure that that logic holds quite as firm as it used to hold. So maybe they should reassess. And if they actually wanted to be, which they don't, but if they actually wanted to be a party of the working class has a harder time just because of like having to work, having to raise kids, having a lot on their plate, has a harder time making the polls every single time. You might actually lean into letting people vote. If they had leaned into mail-in voting this time,
they would have won.
They probably would have won. So even their calculus around this, I think, is extraordinarily flawed. But then, you know, their billionaire backers are very concerned about having all their dark money exposed here.
It's just it's a complete idiocy. I've talked about this before. The Knight Foundation, the 100 Million Americans Project, found that if you expand voting and you have non-voters who voted, they would equally vote Republican and Democrat, and that non-voters in particular, if anything, have a slight edge towards a Trumpist type Republican in terms of the issues that they're activated by. Shocker! So if you actually made it easier to vote, you might even win more votes. This looks a fundamental tension. There is a baked in, like the voter ID obsession that goes all the way back to like the Reagan era, which is baked into both the GOP elite. This is why I actually think Stop the Steal was so effective and why a lot of people signed on tacitly in the beginning, is because they agree with the fundamental message. And then same thing around the grassroots now that Trump has convinced everybody that the election was stolen. And what happened in Georgia? Less people showed up to vote. There are a lot of reasons for that, both policy and because of what Trump said. And Ross Douthat has actually pointed to this. All those people who were traditional voters that you could bank on, they all voted for Joe Biden in the presidency, just so you all know. And so like those upper middle class white liberals who can take the day off, or housewives or whatever who don't work, they're all Democrats now. They're not Republicans anymore. So the people who it's harder to vote, you know, people who work-a-day jobs and more, who half vote Dem, half vote R, maybe disproportionately a little bit more R than last time, that now makes it so that you are actually, in many ways, could make it harder for your people to vote. They just have no idea who their actual voters are. They really don't. They haven't readjusted policy in order to represent them. And the truth is they probably don't have to, because they can keep their, X% or whatever in the Senate and in the House because of the culture war. So it's just like it's terrible incentives all around.
They're banking on, let's keep the various mechanisms that we already have in place that tilt the playing field in our favor.
Slightly. It's not even a lot.
Make it so that Democrats have to win by the electoral, they have to win the popular vote by more. They have to win the House by more. They have to win the Senate by more in terms of the popular vote and the number of voters. Let's just keep those things in place and hold on and hope for the best, rather than, actually trying to form a majority coalition, which, look, they have a fairly clear path to. I mean, Democrats have created a real opening for them here.
Hard.
So it's kind of a tell that, at least among, GOP elites, Mitch McConnell and the Koch network and the like, they just want to go back to the way things were before. They just want to go back to the old coalition they had, go back to all the old ways that they have, not to rethink a single thing. I think that's really the big thing that's exposed here.
100%.
Tomorrow on Rising, Michael Starr Hopkins, Marshall Kosloff, they're going to join us for Team Rising.
That's right. Friends of the show, host of the Bad Faith podcast, Brianna Joy Gray, and Irami Osei Frimpong, a.k.a. the Funky Academic. He's back with us. Remember to hit the subscribe button. You don't miss any of our videos. Don't forget to like and share as well. And we'll see you all tomorrow.
Have a good one, guys.